So the topics that we're going to be covering today, and the main topics for discussion, are going to be focused on enterprise, education, employability, and collaboration. We will then also move on to touching on the legal side of starting up your own business, what that involves, and we'll be relying quite a lot on Aurelia for that. And then also the funding side, so access to funding, a bit of focus on SEIS and EIS, which Tim Rush will be focused on that side of things along with Zach as well. So if I can start off on the enterprise side of things. Also what I wanted to mention about questions. If there are any urgent questions that people have, we'll be doing a Q&A at the end. If there are any urgent questions as we're going along, we will incorporate those into the discussion. But I am quite aware of the time, seeing as we've started a little bit late. But we'll still be running for an hour and a half. So if we start off with the enterprise topic, which is, there's quite a lot that falls under the banner of enterprise. Within RBS, this year is actually our year of enterprise within the bank. And what enterprise covers for us as a bank, it incorporates entrepreneurship, and the key focus for us is obviously our partnership with Entrepreneurial Spark. It also incorporates women in business. We have over 300 accredited women in business specialists around the bank who have actually gone through a recognised accreditation through the Chartered Banker Institute, and we're one of the only banks that actually do that in the market. We also have a long and ongoing partnership with the Prince's Trust. RBS has actually been one of the longest standing sponsors of the Prince's Trust, with over 30 years worth of sponsorship. And it's quite appropriate that this is the 40th anniversary of the Prince's Trust. So this is also one of our key focuses this year for supporting the Prince's Trust. So if I can open the floor to Tim Bogue, our Regional Managing Director. Tim, would you be okay just to give us a little bit of context around the numbers of businesses that we've helped within under each of those banners that I've just talked about? Thank you.
Excuse me. Good morning, everybody. So I think enterprise, obviously a key theme for the bank, as Fiona outlined. There are some very interesting statistics around enterprise. Something like 50% of the people, when asked in this country, would like to run their own business, but over half of them don't want to take that plunge because of fear of failure, amongst other things. So that is the first statistic. The second thing, which is doesn't reflect particularly well on banks, I think, is that only about 1 in 10 would go to their banks for advice around setting up and starting to run a business. So, there's a couple of statistics that starts to set the context. And I think for us as an organisation, and I think for the banking industry as a whole, actually, we have a big job to do in terms of rebuilding trust and being more active, visible, and working in the communities that both, the employees of the banks work and live in, and our customers work and live in as well. Because if those communities are successful, then we're all beneficiaries of that. So there's a bit of work for us to do, and I think what we realised a few years ago is actually we needed to be out there and helping businesses grow, helping enterprise, and there's a whole range of ways we can do that. And our relationship with eSpark and KPMG is just one way of doing that through the NatWest accelerators. So we have a hub downstairs that many of you will be familiar with. We have 13 hubs. We will have 13 hubs around the country in 2017 when we open up in London. The success rate of the businesses that have gone through the programme or going through the programme, about 88% of them survive and become successful businesses. That's much, much higher. That's probably double the national average in terms of business successes. So that tells us that something about this programme that we're investing in is working. Just another couple of statistics. The businesses we've supported, 2,000 jobs have been created. There's 86 million of turnover, 86 million of sales from those businesses, and they've attracted about £45 million of investment. So again, these are small enterprises that are starting to grow and become successful. There are many other things we've done around enterprise. We've wanted to involve our employees in that. If you think about the resources we can bring to it, apart from expertise, we have premises, we have physical infrastructure around the country, and one of the big barriers for businesses as they're growing, small businesses, is access to infrastructure. It's not just broadband, but actually if you need 4 desks or 6 desks rather than the back room of the house because you've outgrown that, then where do you go? And if you go to a landlord that wants a 3-year lease or a 5-year lease, fixed cost, that's quite a big challenge. So bringing our sort of physical resources, the real estate, if you like, to the fore for the benefit of entrepreneurs is one key area where we can help. And I think there are lots of other benefits. I'm sure Gail will go on and talk about the hub and collaboration and the way that the entrepreneurs can work together, learn from together and develop. And so I'll let her talk about that. But I think starting with the physical infrastructure is one thing we can do. And the second thing is our employee involvement. We have 80,000 employees in the RBS group, many employed by NatWest, the majority in fact employed by NatWest. 80,000 employees, most of them based in the UK, many of them with skills that they probably don't realise they've got in some cases, but we're investing in them in terms of building capabilities so that they can help customers and entrepreneurs as well. And so we're putting 1,500 this year through what we call our Entrepreneurs Development Academy, which is what Fiona's been through, I've been through it. It's the immersion that the entrepreneurs go through it. And that's about giving them some skills and sort of helping to understand some of the challenges that entrepreneurs face and those people that are setting up in business face. And I think if we can understand some of those challenges a little bit better, then we can start to identify some of the needs and help with those needs. So we'd like to get 10,000 of our colleagues through that programme over 5 years, and I think those people can get actively involved in their communities to help businesses grow and hopefully overcome some of the challenges. So I don't know, Fiona, is that enough? I mean, I could go on and talk about other things, but that's I think a start in terms of why enterprise is really important for us.
Yeah, it really is. So thank you very much for that, Tim. I suppose the other couple of bits to add was just around the mobile banking business school, the way that's helped. We have a mobile banking business school, which there have been a couple of adverts in the past years about that and the work that does. It's travelled over 17,000 miles in the last year and touched a number of communities, and that ranges from pupils in schools to army barracks, libraries, city centres, councils, and really just helping businesses to understand or people to understand ways that we can go about helping them to actually start up their own businesses. So that was just another thing that I just wanted to touch on. If I can ask Dr. George as well, if you, with regards to the university, there's a lot in wearing your mantle as the SME and innovation specialist, and I know enterprise is a big focus for the university as well. Would you maybe just like to add a little bit of context around that, Dr. George?
Yes, of course. You want to talk about the issue in general, or about the role the university has played so far?
The role that the university has played.
Okay. Let me start by saying that our university has a philosophy of trying to support actively enterprises in the region, and we have proven that through a number of initiatives. Some of you may be aware of a program that my colleague Judith Badger has been running, the ProfitNet program. It has supported more than 1,500 businesses so far, with good and solid results that we have measured through our evaluation. But also we are very keen to support the small enterprises in the region through a number of other initiatives, student placements, training we are offering, as well as some special workshops we are organizing for the local businesses. If I can just speak about our university just for a minute and showing how good a job we're doing is, there is a thing that's called Research Evaluation Framework, which is the formal evaluation exercise of the British government of all British universities. So one REF exercise took place at the end of 2014. The results came up last year at the end of 2015, and it showed that our university was fourth in the country in terms of creating an impact with the research that's doing within the university, in terms of supporting businesses in the region and trying to help them to grow. So that was quite a distinctive position we achieved, and we are very proud of that. We have an integral element of our strategy is what we call closing the loop. And if I can explain that for a minute, we're an academic institution, so primarily we have to teach our students and do research, academic research of following the international standards. However, there are different strategies of academic research that have been followed. Some universities are focusing primarily on academic research that is aiming to publish in academic journals and make some influence in academic circles. While this is definitely an important element for us, we have a second element, which is what we call closing the loop, which is to use the research we're doing in order to improve the lives of the people and the companies that have participated in our research. So it's always our strategy to generate academic insights and use these insights to improve the lives of the people that have been involved in our research, do something to improve the conditions in which they're trying to operate. And a typical example of that, I think, was the Profinance program. We've been doing research in this phenomenon of peer-to-peer learning, which is how you can bring people that are on the same task, different entrepreneurs, that they may be afraid that if they talk to each other, they can leak their competitive secret to each other. But then we use research to convert that into a confidential environment where people could share things with each other without having the fear they will lose to each other, and they're not going to be supportive to each other. And so that was the result of our research, where we saw this happening in different parts of the world. We made our translation into the local context, and then we initiated a number of processes, a number of jobs, a number of systems around that, and we brought these companies to start talking to each other and benefiting from the process. Just to close, I don't want to expand forever. The academics have the tendency to talk too much, probably. We are continuing this adventure. As I said, Judith Badger, who was the champion of Profinet in the region, she's now based 2 days a week in this building, just to enhance the relationship between small companies and the university. We are keen to see small businesses to come to our door for assistance and help. So, contrary to the common perception of a lot of small businesses that the universities are probably not interested to those small businesses, are not interested to be involved in the affairs of small businesses, we are really keen to open our door and help wherever we can. And we also continue to have the aspiration to use the outcome of our research to inform the small businesses, the people who are trying to support small businesses like the Spark program, and anybody else who can make a difference. So this is a commitment we're trying to translate into action every day. It's not always easy, sometimes it's a challenge, but it's definitely a strong commitment on our behalf.
Thank you very much for that. So yeah, as Dr. George mentioned, we are actually very fortunate to have Brighton University here permanently with us in the hatchery space. And Jude, I don't want to kind of showcase you, but do you mind just standing up so that people can say hello to Jude? Jude has been instrumental in helping a lot of our businesses that are going through the Entrepreneurial Spark program with introductions to apprentices and graduates and interns who actually want to help work with some of our businesses that are at that stage where they're taking on new staff and are very unsure about how to go about that, might not be able to pay people to actually expand their business. And Jude's been very instrumental in working very closely with us as the bank and as Entrepreneurial Spark around ways that we can very much work together. So it's been great to have Jude along and the Brighton University. So thank you very much for that. So I'd like to turn now to Gail. Gail, obviously you've worked for a number of years with Entrepreneurial Spark. You've been with them for over 4 years from the very beginning.
Yes.
So you've seen a number of sort of waves of statistics, and obviously how the increase there has been on entrepreneurship around the country. So would you mind if you can just touch a little bit on some of the types of businesses you've seen, some of the successes from Entrepreneurial Spark, and the impact that that's made on the local communities where we've got a presence?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to start, I'll give you a slight bit of background on Entrepreneurial Spark. We began in Scotland. What we're discovering now, we've expanded outside of Scotland, is that Scotland's like a village, and every city that we come to is like another Scotland replicated. And within Scotland and within the cities that we're arriving in, there's loads of support out there for entrepreneurs, but what seems to be missing is something to tie it all together. And we're finding that because we're not here with any other agenda than supporting entrepreneurs. We're not tech focused, we're not women focused, we're not young people focused. We're completely agnostic. Then it means that we seem to have arrived to be the epicentre of enterprise support within each of the cities that we work in. We started with an agenda in Scotland to be disruptive, positively disruptive, and shake up the country with a mission to start up a start-up revolution within Scotland, and I think it's pretty safe to say that we did that in a short period of time. Our mission has switched slightly now to inspire and enable positive social change through the action of entrepreneuring, and you can decipher that as you wish. Tim, you touched on a lot of the statistics that have come out of the 660 businesses that we've supported so far. And for us, the big one is the 88% survival rate. And that really turns the national average on its head. 88% survive. And I was at an event yesterday and somebody said to me, well, what about the businesses that come in through the doors? Because that's 88% of those that leave. What about the ones that come in through the doors? And for my response is, well, a failure is actually a positive thing. For somebody to come into a place like this and understand that they don't have a business before they waste time, money, energy, and a lot of grey hair is a good result. That's a positive thing. And I've said it regularly in the States, and entrepreneurs in America wear failure like a badge of honour. But we have a bit of a different mindset here in Scotland. Our focus is very much on the mindset of the entrepreneur. As I say, we're completely sector agnostic, and entrepreneur is an entrepreneur for us. So when you talk about trends, Brighton's a digital hub. There's so many creatives here, but there's so many amazing other different businesses. I'm seeing Brighton Gin here in the front row, an amazing Brighton start-up business in the food and drink sector. And I'm blown away by the number of food and drink businesses that have walked through the door. We've got Melanie from Bare Biology here who's working in skincare and you can health and life sciences and all of these things. And Zach asked if we had any tech startups, and yes, we absolutely have got tech startups downstairs, and they want to be here because they know about tech, so they don't need to sit around other tech businesses. They want to come sit around other entrepreneurs and find out what pain they're having. So it's been a real experience for us here in Brighton, and there are some amazing businesses here, and in services, in food and drink, in tech, and many more.
Okay, thank you for that, Gail. Yeah, I think what Gail touched on there about the number of different types of businesses that we have in Brighton, it is, as everyone knows, it's a really diverse city in many ways. And when we first opened down here, we were actually surprised. So that this time last year, when we actually opened the hatchery, we were quite surprised about the mix of the different types of businesses that we're applying. It wasn't mainly tech businesses, which is what we were expecting. There was actually a lot of different type food and drink, and some very, very creative businesses, and that's really is our aim and our focus is to try and help those businesses to succeed and stay in Brighton. Sorry,
just
yeah.
one more point as well, is that I don't want to beat the female drum here, but this is the year of the female entrepreneur, and we have a 50-50 male to female split, not just here in Brighton but across the UK. I think that's about a 25% increase from about 5 years ago
Yeah.
of successful entrepreneurs, and I think it's a point worth making.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. Yeah. Tim, do you want to maybe just touch a little bit on the KPMG side, because Tim heads up the enterprise division, should I call it, within KPMG?
Yeah, that's a
So
fair
if
way
you
of
want,
saying it.
are there any stats or anything that you found in the trends over the last few years?
I'll touch on a couple of things. I think is a lot of people are surprised when they say KPMG. What are you doing in the enterprise space? You only work with BT, BP, Shell. I think you actually sort of, if we're looking at it, we've always worked in the mid-market space, but we haven't actually probably advertised it enough. However, we've made a conscious decision that this is an area where we want to focus on because it is, but UK PLC is growing through SMEs. It's as simple as that. Also, it's actually the speed of change. We're realising companies are growing so quickly. If we're not involved at an early stage with companies, we're not going to work with them when they grow 3-4 years old. Especially with entrepreneurs, they are loyal to people who've helped them when they're started. So we've sort of had a mindset change of saying is actually we want to go on a journey with clients or with targets, and it's over a 5-year period at least. We're not expecting to say, oh, we'll get fees, etc. It's more, can we work with companies throughout their journey and really enhance it, because it will actually help us as a business because it's growing. The other thing is, which hasn't really talked about it, you mentioned it slightly with the RBSs, if we're looking more at the entrepreneurs and at the startup ones, the benefit we get for our staff of actually assisting that is phenomenal, and people underestimate that. So with the mentor programs, not just with eSpark, with other ones, it's an education and learning for them as well. So from a South perspective as a firm, by getting people involved, we're upskilling our staff at the same time. So when they're talking to other businesses, they've got a different mindset. The other thing I'll just touch on is, and it'll be interesting, Zach's sort of view on this is, we're seeing big businesses and small businesses changing the dynamic of how they're working. There is so much more now partnerships. We ran just a dinner up in London for the gaming sector, but it was a mixture of, EA, Konami on the big side, but really actually some startups and production investors in there. No speakers, no agenda, but just about 25 people around the table. It's the most buzzing dinner I've ever been to, of the conversations which are happening. People can learn off the entrepreneurs. The agility, the speed of change which they can do is so much better than some of the big companies. And there's a changing dynamic, and we want to actually make sure that we're introducing people to the right people, because it helps us for our established companies, because they get introductions for the people at the startup stage, but for the startup ones, there's often on distribution channels and how to work, how to procure. So the dynamic's changing, and we've got to be there. So from our one, yes, it's a business need, but it's also exceedingly exciting to do as well.
Thank you. Zach, did you maybe just, on the back of what Tim's just said, obviously you have benefited from a lot of help from KPMG. Did you maybe just want to touch, what's the time? Did you want to just touch a little bit on the type of help that KPMG have given you, and how that's benefited you in your rounds of funding that you've been going through?
Yeah, so we were actually on another accelerator, which is where we met KPMG in 2014.
Yeah.
The amount of support that you need when you're starting up in areas such as finance and legal is phenomenal. So when we first set up, we were straight out of university, and we got to the accelerator, and they got us in contact with the mentors, and they handed us this big wad of paperwork and was like, right, you need to get your legal sorted. And we were like, I think you've got something wrong. We just make games, so this isn't us. But it's something that we very quickly learned, that if we was to succeed and to raise money, we needed to get those things in place very quickly. And that was a phenomenal step from going from startup to raising money, is when you go and speak to an investor and you can talk through your SEIS and how your articles are structured, and it's everything they want to see. It makes that step so much quicker, and that's stuff we wouldn't have had in place had we not had that support from both KPMG and others. What was I going to say? In terms of the meeting larger businesses, just to add on top of what you were saying, so we were invited to this dinner. Wasn't really sure what to expect, but when we got there, it was just very casual, and there was a lot of big companies in the room as well as a lot of startups. And we actually got speaking to Konami while we were there, and they were very interested in speaking with us and coming in and seeing how we operate. And in return, we got to send them a build of the game and got a bunch of feedback from them. And it was just a completely open relationship just from meeting at this dinner that was hosted by KPMG. So it was very beneficial.
Fantastic, thank you. We will touch a little bit, one of the topics we are going to cover is collaboration as well. So it's great to hear that there's been a lot of collaboration between yourself, KPMG, and other partners that have been able, or players that have been able to help you. So that's fantastic.